Hey gang, you're going to learn how to factor quadratic equations like nobody's business. There's this easy step-by-step method I'm going to show you, and it'll work with any example that you get in class. It's pretty sweet, so let's jump into it. So you may have something like this, and x squared plus 3x minus 10. These could be any two numbers here. And step one, we want to find the magic number. And the magic number is we take the number here and multiply it by the number there. Now there's no number here, which means it's 1. 1 times negative 10 is negative 10. Step 2, we find a tree, so the factor tree. So we break this negative 10 down into what could multiply to make it the factors, essentially. So 1 and 10 are factors. This is our factor tree. 1 times 10, we'll ignore the negative. Also, 2 times 5 makes 10 as well. Now, to deal with this negative here, they need to multiply together, 2 times 5, to get negative 10. So one of these has to be negative. But when they add together, they have to equal 3. So either there has to be a difference between them and 3, or they have to add to 3, or they subtract to 3, things like that. Well, this first set sucks, right? Because the difference between these is 9, not 3. But the difference between these is 3 here. Either we can add them together to get 7, or we subtract them to get 3. Now, one has to be negative. If the 2 is negative, then when they add together, we get 3. So these are our two numbers. And for step 3, we want to split this 3 right here into these two numbers. So we get x squared minus 2x plus 5x minus 10. So we split that 3 up, see that? And now we do what's called easy factors. So we look at the first two terms and we factor out the greatest common factor, which in this case is x. We pull x out of both terms. And then we look at the next set of terms. The common factor is 5. We pull that out. So we get x minus 2. And if you did this correctly, then what's in the brackets here, these parentheses, those should be the same. If they're the same, you're doing it right. Now we can just simplify this to x plus 5 times x minus 2. It's kind of like factoring out an x minus 2, and we're factored. That's it. Great. Pretty cool, hey? And this works for anything. So even this example here where looks like we're missing a term. Now you might know this as being factoring into a difference of squares, where we get the square root of this, 25, which is 5. So difference of squares would be x plus 5 times x minus 5. Maybe you just memorize that, but we can use our step-by-step method. You don't have to memorize anything like that, and it'll always work. So step 1, we find the magic number. So we take this number here, which is a 1, multiply it by the negative 25. So we get negative 25. That's our magic number. Then we do our factor tree, which is 1 and 25. Or what else multiplies to get 25? 5 and 5. You might need to use your calculator to divide by 2, divide by 3, divide by 7, whatever, just to check it out. Now, there's no middle number here, right? Which means that the middle number is actually 0. So this can be rewritten as x squared plus 0x minus 25. So our two numbers have to add to 0. Well, one of these has to be negative because they multiply to negative 25. So if these are the same, if one of them's negative and we add them together, we get 0, 5, which is what we want here. So great. So now we split this middle term, which becomes 5 and negative 5. So x squared plus 5x minus 5x minus 25. And now we do our easy factor. So we look at the first two terms, we'll pull x out. And you're always going to pull x out, or just about always. Minus, and now pull out 5 again. Sorry, we'll pull out a negative 5 because there's negatives in both of these terms. So this becomes x plus 5. And if you did this correctly, then the things inside the parentheses should be the same. And then we just pull this out to become x minus 5 times x plus 5. Done. Sweet. Okay, so next example here, we have these three terms. Now, whenever you look at the numbers every time you see this and see if you can make life easier for you. It should be obvious that these are all even numbers. So when you see all even numbers, you can pull out a 2. So we can factor this by just pulling out a greatest common factor before diving deeper into it. So this is factoring this right here. Now we have smaller numbers that are just easier to deal with, essentially. Now we want to factor this. So we find our magic number. So this is a 1 here. So we'll multiply these two together to get 4. 1 times 4 is 4. We do our factor tree. So 1 and 4, 2 and 2, And I think that's it here. We don't do decimals or anything like that. Now, we need these numbers to multiply to 4 and to add to 6. Well, 1 plus 4, that's 5. 2 plus 2 is 4. None of our factors, pairs of factors, add to 6. So what this means is that if we can't find a set of numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 6, then it's just not factorable. So that's it. This is our final form here. All we can do is pull out a 2, x squared plus 6x plus 4, and we're done as far as we can get. Okay, for our last example, you may see one in which there's a number here in front. And this shouldn't scare you at all because it's literally the same steps that we always do. Step 1, we find our magic number, which is 18. Then we find our factors, so 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, and I think that's all of them. So these need to add or subtract to get to 11, negative 11. And the difference between 1 and 18, that's 17, so that one's out. 9 and 11, if you add 9 and 2, 9 plus 2 is 11, so that's good. And then 6 and 3 doesn't work because that only gets us to 9. So we want to get to 11. How can we get to 11? And this still has to be positive. Well, if both of these numbers are negative, then when they add together, they're negative 11. Add together, and when we multiply them together, the negative cancels out. Negative times the negative makes it positive, so it's just positive 18, which is what we want. So negative 2, these are our numbers here, negative 2 and negative 9. So next step, we'll split it up. So we get 2x squared minus 2x minus 9x plus 9. Now for our easy factoring, we look at the first two terms and pull out what's common. So 2x is the greatest common factor here, and we're left with x minus 1. And now if we just pull out a 9 in these next two terms, say 9, that would give us negative x plus 1, we're not the same, right? We need a negative here. So let's pull out a negative 9, and that would make this positive here, and this one negative here. So if you feed the chickens, you get negative 9 here. The negative 9 times negative 1 is positive 9. Now we have the same stuff in the parentheses here. So this becomes 2x minus 9 times x minus 1, and we're factored. Great. These should be all the examples that you'll have to worry about in quadratic equations. Did you benefit from it? Let me know. I'd be very interested. And if you got some benefit, some value from this video, consider liking it. And great. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.